You know what's fascinating? Right now, as you're listening to this, you're probably losing money and you don't even realize it. Not because someone is stealing from you, not because you made a bad investment, but because of something so subtle, so embedded in our economic system that most people never stop to think about it. Let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah works as a marketing manager at a mid-sized tech company. She makes $75,000 a year, which sounds pretty good, right? She's proud of her salary, worked hard to get there, and feels like she's finally making decent money. But here's what Sarah doesn't know. Her employer is paying almost $90,000 for her, that extra $15,000. It's not going into her pocket. It's not building her retirement. It's not funding her health care in the way she thinks it is. It is disappearing into a complex web of taxes and costs that exist in the shadow of her paycheck. This is the hidden tax on employees that nobody talks about, and it's costing you far more than you could ever imagine. When we talk about taxes, most people think about what they see on their pay stub. Federal income tax, state income tax, Social Security, Medicare. These are visible. You can calculate them, complain about them, and understand where your money is going. But there's an entire universe of costs associated with employing you that you never see. Costs that directly impact your earning potential, your job security, and your future wealth. These hidden costs change the entire equation of how much you're actually worth to an employer versus how much you take home. And understanding this gap is absolutely crucial. If you want to navigate your career strategically, let's start with the most obvious hidden cost, the employer's portion of payroll taxes. When you look at your paycheck, you see that the government takes 7.65% for Social Security and Medicare. What you do unsee is that your employer is also paying 7.65% on top of your salary. For every dollar you earn, they're paying an additional 7.65 cents that never touches your hands. Now you might think, well, that's the employer's problem, not mine. But here's the thing. When a company is deciding whether to hire someone, whether to give raises, whether to expand their team, they're not thinking about your salary. They're thinking about your total cost. If you're making $75,000, your employer is actually budgeting for at least $81,000 just in base payroll taxes alone. This isn't money they can invest in equipment, research, or yes, higher salaries for employees. It's money that goes straight to the government, and it directly affects how much they can afford to pay you. But payroll taxes are just the beginning. Let's talk about unemployment insurance. Every employer must pay federal and state unemployment taxes. These rates vary by state, but they typically range from 1 to 6% of your wages. In some states with higher rates, or if a company has a history of layoffs, this can be even higher. This money funds unemployment benefits, which is important for societal safety nets. But it's another cost layered on top of your employment. Then there's workers' compensation insurance. This is required in almost every state, and the rates vary wildly depending on your industry. If you work in an office, it might be relatively cheap, maybe 1 to 2% of payroll. But if you work in construction or manufacturing, it could be 10% or more. Again, this is money your employer must spend on you that you never receive directly. Now let's get to the really big one, health insurance. This is where the hidden tax becomes absolutely massive. The average employer-sponsored health insurance plan for a single person costs about $8,000 per year, and for a family, it's over $23,000 annually. Most employers pay between 70 and 80% of these premiums, so even if you're contributing $200 per month from your paycheck for insurance, your employer might be paying $600 or $700 per month that you never see. For Sarah, with her $75,000 salary, her employer is likely paying around $6,000 per year for her health insurance on top of her salary. That's a huge hidden cost. And here's the kicker. This money could have been your salary if the health insurance system worked differently, if costs were lower, if the system were more efficient, that $6,000 could be in your pocket. But instead, it's trapped in this bizarre system where your employment is tied to your health care and the true cost is hidden from you. Think about this for a moment. If you're trying to negotiate a raise and you ask for $5,000 more per year, your employer isn't just thinking about that $5,000. They're thinking about the additional $382 in payroll taxes, the additional unemployment insurance costs, the potential increase in workers' comp premiums, and the fact that health insurance costs keep rising every year. Your $5,000 raise actually costs them closer to $6,000 or more. This is why raises can be so hard to get. It's not just about the number you're asking for. It's about all these hidden multipliers that make you more expensive than you realize. But wait, there's more. Let's talk about compliance costs. Every employee a company hires comes with paperwork, regulations, reporting requirements, and legal obligations. Companies must maintain HR departments, payroll systems, benefits administrators, and legal counsel to ensure they're complying with labor laws. The Department of Labor estimates that regulatory compliance costs businesses about $10,000 per employee per year for companies with fewer than 50 employees. Even for larger companies with economies of scale, these costs are substantial. None of this money goes to you, but it's directly attributable to your employment. It's part of what makes you expensive to hire and maintain. Then there are the costs that come from labor regulations themselves. Paid time off, sick leave, parental leave. These are all wonderful benefits that improve quality of life, but they represent time that you're being paid without producing value for the company. The average American worker gets about 10 days of vacation per year, plus federal holidays, plus sick days. That's roughly 15 to 20 days where you're getting paid but not working. From the employer's perspective, they're repaying for roughly 4 to 5% more in labor costs just to cover your time off. Again, this is factored into the calculation of whether they can afford to hire you or give you a raise. Now let's talk about something even more insidious, the inflation tax. This is the hidden tax that affects every single person, whether you're an employee, employer, or self-employed. But it hits employees particularly hard when the government prints more money or expands the money supply, which has happened at unprecedented rates in recent years. The value of your dollars decreases. Your $75,000 salary might be the same number on paper, but it buys less and less each year. Real wages, when adjusted for inflation, have been essentially stagnant for decades for most workers. You might get a 3% raise, but if inflation is running at 4 or 5 or 7%, you're actually getting poorer. The hidden tax of inflation is that your employer has to give you raises just to keep you in the same place, which makes it harder for them to give you raises that actually improve your standard of living. And when your employer's costs are also increasing due to inflation, and their supplies, their rent, their utilities, they have even less room to increase your compensation. Here's something most people never consider. There's also an opportunity cost tax on being an employee. When you work for someone else, you're trading your time, skills, and effort for a salary, but your employer is capturing the full value of your work. If you generate $150,000 in value for your company, but you're paid $75,000, that $75,000 difference isn't just profit for some greedy CEO. Some of it is covering all these hidden costs we've been talking about. But some of it is indeed profit, return on investment, and growth capital. This is the entrepreneurial premium, the reward for taking risk and building a business. As an employee, you've traded the potential for unlimited upside in exchange for stability and a steady paycheck. That's not necessarily bad, but it is a hidden cost. You're leaving money on the table in exchange for security? Let's dig deeper into how this affects your actual financial life. Imagine you want to calculate your true hourly wage. Most people just divide their salary by 2,000, assuming 40 hours a week for 50 weeks. But that's not accurate. First, you need to subtract all your taxes. Federal income tax, state income tax, Social Security, Medicare, and any local taxes. For someone making $75,000, after all taxes, you might take home around $55,000 depending on your state and deductions. Then consider your commute time. If you spend an hour commuting each day, that's 5 extra hours per week you're dedicating to your job without pay. Suddenly you're working 45 hours per week, not 40. Then there are work-related expenses. Professional clothes, lunches, coffee, maybe parking or gas. These can easily add up to $3,000 to $5,000 per year. Now your $55,000 take-home is really $50,000 or less, and you're working more hours than you thought. Your true hourly wage might be $22 per hour when you thought it was $36 based on your gross salary. The hidden tax has cut your real earnings by almost 40%, but the biggest hidden tax of all might be the retirement security tax. Most people rely on their employer for retirement benefits, whether it's a 401k match or a pension if you're lucky enough to have one. But here's the problem. The average employer matches around 3 to 4% of your salary. That means if you're making $75,000, your employer might contribute $3,000 per year to your retirement. That sounds nice, but is it really enough? Financial advisors generally recommend saving 15 to 20% of your income for retirement. If your employer is contributing 4% and you're contributing 6%, you're at 10%, well short of what you actually need. The hidden tax here is the illusion of retirement security. You feel like you're doing okay because you have a retirement account and your employer is contributing, but you're actually falling behind? And because this shortfall is hidden, spread out over decades, most people don't realize they're in trouble until it's too late. By the time you're 55 or 60 and realize you don't have nearly enough saved, your options are limited. Work longer, save more aggressively and sacrifice your current lifestyle, or retire with less and hope it works out. There's also a knowledge tax that employees pay. When you work for someone else, you're typically specialized in a specific role. You become really good at one thing, which is valuable, but it also makes you vulnerable. If your industry changes, if your skills become obsolete, if your company downsizes, you're in trouble. Entrepreneurs and business owners, on the other hand, develop a broader range of skills. They understand sales, marketing, finance, operations, and management. They're forced to learn and adapt constantly. As an employee, You're repaying a hidden tax in the form of narrowed skill development and increased vulnerability to economic changes. You're trading comprehensive knowledge for the stability of specialization. But that stability is increasingly illusory in our rapidly changing economy. Let's talk about the benefits trap. Another hidden tax that locks people into employment situations that aren't ideal for them. Because health insurance in America is tied to employment, and because individual health insurance is often prohibitively expensive, people stay in jobs they hate, with bosses they can't stand, earning less than they're worth, because they need the health insurance. This is a massive hidden tax on your freedom, your earning potential, and your happiness. How many people would start a business, switch careers, go back to school, or negotiate harder if they weren't terrified of losing their health insurance? The answer is millions. This system creates a form of employment dependency that benefits employers at the expense of workers' autonomy and earning potential. Now, I'm not saying all of this to depress you or to suggest that being an employee is a bad deal. For many people, employment is the right choice. It provides stability, benefits, structure, and the ability to focus on what you do best without worrying about running a business. But what I am saying is that you need to understand the full picture. You need to know about all these hidden costs and taxes so you can make informed decisions about your career and your finances. When you understand that your employer is paying significantly more for you than you're taking home, it changes how you think about raises and negotiations. When you understand that inflation is constantly eroding your purchasing power, it changes how you think about saving and investing. When you understand the true cost of employment, including all the time and money you're spending on work-related activities, it changes how you evaluate job offers and career opportunities. So what do you do with this information? First, educate yourself about personal finance. Understand how taxes work, how to invest, how to build wealth outside of just your salary. Second, negotiate better. Know your worth, not just in terms of salary, but in terms of total compensation. Ask about health insurance, quality, retirement matching, professional development opportunities, and flexible work arrangements that can reduce your commuting and other costs. Third, diversify your income. Don't rely solely on your employer for your financial security. Build side income, invest in assets, develop skills that could allow you to freelance or consult. Fourth, think long-term. Make career decisions based on where you want to be in 10 or 20 years, not just what sounds good right now. Sometimes taking a lower salary at a company with better growth potential or learning opportunities is the right move. And finally, consider entrepreneurship, even if it's just part-time. You don't have to quit your job and start a company tomorrow, but explore ways to capture more of the value you create. Maybe it's freelancing on weekends, starting a small online business, or investing in real estate. The goal is to gradually reduce your dependence on a single employer and the hidden taxes that come with that dependence. The hidden tax on employees is real, it's substantial, and it's affecting your financial life whether you realize it or not. But knowledge is power. Now that you understand how the system really works, you can make smarter decisions, negotiate better, and build a more secure financial future. The game is rigged in certain ways, but once you understand the rules, you can learn to play it better. You can't eliminate all these hidden taxes, but you can minimize them, work around them, and structure your career and finances in ways that put more money in your pocket and give you more control over your future. That's the real goal, not just to earn more, but to keep more, to build more, and to create the kind of financial security and freedom that allows you to live life on your own terms. The hidden tax is real, but now you see it, and that changes everything. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.